There's something important about the Orange Bastard's criminal trial in New York that's not being openly talked about. That's the first sentence in Robert Reich's new column. He's now writing for The Guardian, by the way, in addition to his own website. But he says, I don't mean we're not getting the facts about what's happening in Manhattan Superior Court, but something very big is being left out. And that is this, as Reich puts it. The trial has introduced us to a world of moral and ethical loathsomeness in which people use and abuse one another routinely. It's Trump world. Now, from that point, Reich goes on. I'll share a little bit more of his column, but isn't that the truth? I mean, have you, if you've been paying attention as best we can to the trial, since there are no cameras inside the courtroom, which I wish there were, but every single person who is involved with Trump in Trump's personal brand of total corruption and filth and lies and grift, every single one of them is a fuckhead. Have you noticed that? The men, the women, I don't care what business they're in or politics or religion, all of them are just slimy people. And no, that's not, I'm not just trying to issue a gratuitous slur against these people. They are known by their actions, by what they've done, what has come out in this trial. From this David Pecker character to Boris Epstein, all of these people, they're just filth. And they all cluster around the queen of filth, Donald Trump. He's like a huge, fat termite in a mound who just continues to give birth to slimy, squiggling, squealing other termites that continue to eat into and bore and weaken American democracy. Jesus, Malloy, that's kind of disgusting. Reich wants us to consider Stormy Daniels. He says, adult film stars are entitled to do as they wish to make money, but when they start to extort people who are running for public office, demanding huge payments in order to stay quiet about an affair, they are contributing to a society in which every interaction has a potential price. Yeah, that's right. I have a hard time supporting emotionally any of these people who have testified against this orange bastard. Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, David Pecker, all of them who are offering up what they claim is truthful testimony and facts related to the orange bastard. Still, it's difficult, isn't it, to embrace these people in a manner of speaking, because you know that they're liars and grifters. I have nothing against Stormy Daniels as a sex worker. It has none of my business. Nothing against David Pecker as a tabloid publisher. Anybody who wants to buy that shit at the supermarket checkout, that's their business. And nothing against Michael Cohen, who was a lawyer who lost his fucking way and decided to sign on with the most predatory, vile politician ever in this country. That's their business. They have to deal with the emotional chaos and psychological destruction that they open themselves up to. But when those forces target the very foundation of American democracy, as struggling as it is right now, that's when I say, well, you son of a bitches, I don't like you, but please keep testifying in order to stop this orange Nazi from succeeding. Now, back to what I was talking about, and that is Robert Reich's column, that the Trump hush money trial is showing to America this filthy world that is just shot through with moral rot and corruption. I mean, some of the shit that has happened in making us aware of this, not just a trial, but everything about Donald Trump. He lives in a world of slime and lies and filth and deceit. And the people who cluster around him are willing, able, eager to enter that same filthy world. It's just astonishing, especially to me when I think about the Christians who have decided that Jesus Christ is just some dead old fucker who lived a couple thousand years ago and the real Messiah is Donald Trump, which is what they display every single time any professed Christian decides to vote for Trump. They are saying, fuck you, Jesus, I have a new one. I don't need you anymore in your fishes and loaves and all that bullshit. I have a walking, living Messiah, Donald Jesus Trump. It's horrible to watch, especially, and I mean this, for someone like me who was brought up in a Christian background, with a Christian background. It's just, it's so depressing to see this. But I digress. Regarding the sludge and the slop and the moral rot that is Trump's world, Reich wants us to remember last week when we heard Stormy Daniels' story, which was even, there more details and bullshit than was expected. But Reich says perhaps the most troubling aspect of her behavior is at the moment the orange bastard ran for office, she saw a chance to, and this is his word, extort money from him. And then she, what's the phrase they use these days? She shopped her story around, her account of their bullshit sexual liaison until she finally accepted $130,000 to be silenced in the 2016 election's final days. Now, whatever we think of Stormy Daniels, and I happen to think that she's pretty feisty, she's funny, she appears to be, dare I say it, honest in her reportage. I don't know Stormy Daniels from Adam's House Cat, but I'm just saying I was entranced or taken with her testimony, what little bits, and the special on 60 Minutes, a couple of years ago when, what's his name, interviewed her. She seemed like a genuine person. She was in a business of her choosing. Nobody forced her to become a sex worker, but I have some issues with that. I do, but so what? Or consider Michael Cohen. Powerful people need fixers. Do you remember the movie Pulp Fiction? The fixer in that movie, after the main characters blew a hole in a person's face in the back seat of their car, and they needed to get the fixer to clean everything up and make things right again. So fixers are, I guess, necessary in modern capitalist, filthy, fucked up society. These are assistants, the fixers are, that carry out the principal's wish or to protect the principal from legal or political trouble. But when those fixers arrange payments to keep stories away from us, which might have an effect or an influence on how we vote, they're then treading, Reich says they're then treading on morally thin ice. I would go further than that, but okay, he's smarter than I am. And as he points out, Mike Cohen didn't just fix. He boasted, before he had his conversion moment, he boasted of burying Trump's secrets and spreading Trump's lies, like a farmer spreading cow shit all over a field. You ever been driven by one of those? Woo! In his work for Trump, Cohen repeatedly acted illegally and found all sorts of ways to cover up the law-breaking that he was involved in. We don't like to talk about his illegal actions, do we? Because we see him, as a matter of fact, he sees himself as the David about to fling the stone at Goliath. That's an analogy he's used. And after he paid Daniels to shut her mouth and the orange bastard got to be president, then Michael Cohen concocted with Trump a means of being reimbursed. Michael Cohen being reimbursed. That involved lying, falsifying records that disguise repayments as, just legal expense. That's according to his testimony. And then there's David Pecker. I mean, I'm sorry. A part of me is still a stupid, horny little 14-year-old boy, and I just have a hard time getting past David Pecker's last name. Mea culpa. I admit it now. But Pecker is the publisher, as we all know now, of the National Enquirer. And are you aware that at one point, Time Incorporated was thinking about hiring him as the managing editor of Time magazine? Anyway, David Pecker. Now, these tabloid publications that Pecker's responsible for, 4 or 5 of them, they have a long tradition in American, and I use this term very loosely, journalism. But as Reich points out, when tabloid publishers buy stories in order to bury them on behalf of law-breaking son of a bitches, law-breaking or not, powerful people who just don't want the rest of us to know anything about this, that, or the other thing, and these powerful people have the means and the wherewithal, way beyond what we have, to hide these stories, well, then they are establishing a kind of bankable account that can be cashed in with the powerful. I mean, once a publisher says, yeah, okay, I'll do what you want, Mr. Trump, then from that point on, if the man in this case, Pecker, if he goes ahead with it, from that point on, he has information about Trump that can be used until such time, maybe, as Trump has David Pecker accidentally falling out of a 14-story window of Trump Tower, in which case, well, guess what? Then he's no longer anything to worry about, right? Well, that's what Putin does. And Trump has made it very clear that Putin is his boy. Trump wants to be Putin. He wants to have the absolute control over everything that Putin has. I mean, they're 2 peas in a pod, even though they're in 2 separate countries, doesn't make any difference. But Pecker, in doing what he did, it violates public morality because it corrupts our democracy. I mean, seriously, not to get preachy, but it does. It corrupts our democracy when a candidate for the presidency cuts a deal with some scum bastard like David Pecker to keep out of the public consciousness something that could very possibly, if not probably, deny the perpetrator, in this case, the orange bastard, the presidency. 2 weeks ago, seems like an eternity ago, Pecker testified about the phrase now, and of course we all know now, is catching and killing stories, buying the exclusive rights to stories. That's the catching part. And then making sure that the information never becomes public. That's the killing part, right? Isn't that cute? Catch and kill. I remember when I was a kid fishing on Lake Erie, we did a thing called catch and release. This is back, and don't laugh, this is back in a time when Lake Erie had northern pike, had, what else did we used to catch? Pickerel, all sorts of game fish. But if they were not of a certain length, according to the Ohio Division of Natural Resources, you were supposed to throw them back. So we had catch and release, right? But this is called catch and kill. And according to people who worked for Pecker, he became an expert at doing just that. And as far as ethics, well, they didn't enter into this equation at all. Which brings us to the orange bastard himself. Now, Reich points out that Reich, doesn't give a shit that Trump had extramarital affairs. But when a presidential candidate tells his fixer to buy off someone, or in Trump's words, just take care of it, so the public doesn't get information about a candidate before an election that they might find relevant to not voting for him, again, it undermines democracy. So it's much larger than Trump taking his little wee-wee and, trying to use it in a manner that Trump would find very pleasurable, but the person against whom he's using it would probably say, what the fuck was that? So this cast of characters, we have seen them during this trial. Well, we haven't seen them, but we've heard about them. We know who they are. And then if you include the people leading up to this, not necessarily involved in the so-called hush money situation, but people who have completely drifted into the slime, like poor old Rudy Giuliani, like Stephen Miller, like all three of Trump's adult children, like his son-in-law, who has cut all kinds of fucked up deals with a murderer who heads the government of Saudi Arabia. I mean, Jesus Christ, there is no limit to the bottom that these people will sink to. There is no bottom. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.